When you go to the eLearn, if you're ever confused about where to find something or where to access something, it's almost certainly going to be on eLearn, and they're in pretty specific spots. So first things first, if you're after the textbooks because you want to do extra work or you're just looking for questions relating to the work that's not on the OneNotes, you want to go to additional materials on the left here, and then there's a textbook tab. Click on that, and then there's two different textbooks. There's MathQuest 1, but Oxford My Maths is the one we use in class, and it's sorted by chapter. So you just need to figure out what chapter you're doing, click it, and it'll download for you, and you can open it in books. The second thing is, if you're just looking for course documents, you just click course documents, and this is where all your lessons are. Now we're in term 2, so you click term 2. And we are in week 2, so you'll notice that we're still in the week where we're working with data. So you click data, and it's set up by lessons, and in brackets it's got what day the lesson is technically scheduled for. Now your schedule at home might not be in terms of your timetable classes, but if it is, this will help guide you. So if you're wondering, for example, today, what am I supposed to be doing today if we have a class today, which we don't normally, but if we did, let's say tomorrow, we'll go, it's Friday week 2. So you'll notice that there is nothing between Friday week 1 and Wednesday week 3. And that's because we have a PSMT that we're working on. So that should spark in your mind that you're supposed to be working on your PSMT. Now, if this is not super clear to you and you really want to structure, then what you want to do is you want to go to course information, this tab on the left. This is going to be the place where you can find your planner. Now, this is not supposed to be, I mean, yes, the teachers use it to stay on top of what they're doing, but it's really important that you guys get familiar with it as well, because you can keep track of your own learning. And then if you fall behind, you know what you need to do to catch up. But also if you're ahead, you can figure out, okay, where are we going next? And you don't need the teacher to tell you to do stuff. You can just go ahead and do it. For example, if you finished summary statistics at the end of last week, which is when you were supposed to start summary statistics, but if you went ahead and finished it, you'll notice if you're looking at the planner that Wednesday, so yesterday, was dedicated towards finishing that lesson. So if you finished it last Friday, rather than doing nothing on a Wednesday, you might look forward into the future and say, okay, I've got assignment work on Monday and Friday. Sorry, Tuesday, we have maths on, yeah, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You might want to go to the week 3 lesson 4, which is the Wednesday lesson, which is analyzing data. So you might go ahead and do that. Or you might say, okay, I've already done this lesson. Maybe I want to work on my assessment more this week. So you can start looking at this term planner. And again, you can find it on eLearn. You can use this term planner to guide your learning and understand what it is you need to be doing. So using the term planner in conjunction with your eLearn course documents, you should be able to find where you're supposed to go. Now, with regard to the PSMT, that's going to be in this assessment and revision tab. So if you ever have a question about where to find something or what to do, you might want to start with this assessment and revision tab on eLearn. So once you go into it, we want item 2 PSMT because that's the assessment task we're working on. And you'll notice straight away, there's 3 files here. The first one is copy of data for year 8 PSMT. So you already have the data in the task sheet, but it's just a screenshot. If you want to look at the actual Excel document, you come here, you click on that top link, and it's going to open a file for you or download a file. So if I open that now, I just put in my details here so I can actually use this. I've just opened this in Excel, and it'll work the same for you on your iPad as well. Not only does this have the data here that we're going to be looking at in a second, it's also got the questions that relate to these pieces of data in these columns. So that's the first thing. The next item in this list is the ISMG item 2 aligned to ACARA. Now, that's a lot of abbreviations, and I can explain that. So the ISMG stands for Instrument Specific Marking Guide, which essentially means I'm going to be using this when looking at your work and making a judgment on your work and how closely it relates to this. So for example, if you've clearly identified an investigation topic within the whole school, if you've chosen 2 different data sets, one categorical, one numerical, if you've made an appropriate prediction, which I'm going to talk about, if you've stated the sample size with a reasonable explanation of why it's reliable, and if you've discussed an appropriate sampling detail and explained it, an appropriate sampling technique and explained it in detail, if you've done all these things, then I'm going to be giving you an A+ for that section. This is the formulate section, okay? And if we scroll down, you'll notice that the same dot points are in the B standard. It's the same dot points, except the descriptors are different. For example, this bottom one, appropriate sampling technique explained. That's slightly different to this top one in the A standard, which is appropriate sampling technique explained in detail. So if you're ever wondering, what do I do to get from a B to an A? You can use this ISMG to judge how your explanation is. So if it's a very detailed explanation, that's more of an A standard. If you've just explained and it's pretty brief, that's probably more of a B standard. So this is a way that you can assess your own work before you submit, because I'm literally going to be using this document to mark your work on. Formulate, then solve, then evaluate and verify, and then communicate. So it should be pretty clear what we're marking you on. But this is not necessary. This is just for those of you who want a deeper understanding of the assessment and how it's going to be assessed. That was that second document on the eLearn. The third one is the one that you probably want, which is item 2, PSMT with scaffolding. So this is the task sheet that I sent out in an email on Monday. So if you didn't get the email for whatever reason, or if you got it and weren't aware there's an attachment, or for whatever reason you didn't have the task sheet on Monday and you know that you've got an assessment task, your first port of call should be to go to eLearn, go to the assessment and revision tab, go to PSMT, and then say, look, the task sheet is here. I can just download it straight from eLearn. Okay. I don't mind answering questions. It's literally my job, what they pay me for in the current situation. However, when I get the same question over and over every single day, it does get quite annoying, especially when there's such a straightforward way to solve it. So please just use a bit of ingenuity and a bit of investigative skills before you send me an email. If you've truly tried and you can't find the answer to your question, then please absolutely email me. But don't treat emailing me as the first thing you should do before you even try and solve the problem. That wasn't directed at anyone particular. It's just a generic statement. So this is your task sheet. The context and task is gone in a bit of detail in Ms. Hopner's video, which is on eLearn as well. I'll show you where that is. If we scroll down from where those topics were on eLearn, again, assessment and revision tab, there's helpful information for PSMT. Now, the breakdown of the task sheet, which is what we were looking at right now, this is the task sheet here. The breakdown of this task sheet, there's a YouTube video from Ms. Hopner. If I click that and go to that YouTube channel, the video is 23 minutes long, so it's very in-depth. So if you're unsure of a specific part of the PSMT and for some reason you can't make the Zoom or whatever, this is where you should probably go to find your answers. Now, scrolling down, I'm going to answer some specific questions about what you need to do. Hopefully it's fairly straightforward because we have given you a lot of scaffolding here. And if you read this carefully, it should be straightforward what to do. The first thing is, if you look at setting out your PSMT, I'm going to go through a blank Word document and show you how I would set it out in a second after I've answered some specific questions, but some students have already got questions, so I'm going to answer them, then go back to the structure. But here we've already got formulate, okay? And Ms. Hopner's been very kind, very, very kind, and she's written down some leading questions or some headings that you should use to help start writing formulate. For example, introduce the purpose of the investigation and the mathematics that you will use throughout your investigation. And to check what mathematics you're going to need, you have a look at solve. So if we go down to solve, okay, first things first, you need to create a frequency table for one of your questions and for the other question. So first things first, up in here, we can write, I need to create a frequency tables, okay? Or we need to create frequency tables. So that's sort of how you go about filling in, hello. This is how you go about filling in, screen's frozen for Alice. Is it frozen for anyone else? Can I just get
frozen for me?
It is?
Yeah, it is. Okay. It's only showing me like you're halfway opened up through the YouTube video.
Okay, I might stop sharing and then restart sharing. What was I on? I was on the PSMT. Okay, thanks for the heads up. Has it unfrozen?
Yeah, it's better now.
Cool, thanks for the heads up, team. So what I was looking at, I'll just quickly go through that again, is in this top question where it says introduce the purpose of the investigation and the mathematics that you will use throughout your investigation. First of all, the purpose of your investigation, that's written in the task right up the top here, almost in the first line. Mr. Hughes has designed a survey to see how all students at Southport State High School spend their spare time and the types of activities they are interested in. He has decided to take a random sample of students, so we drew a class code out, blah, 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 blah. Mr. Hughes has asked you to design a report where you identify the key behaviours of Southport State High School students using the survey responses. So there's your purpose right there, to create a report to identify key behaviours of Southport State High School students for Mr. Hughes. Boom. Right in the task is that first section there. So you fill out that in Formulate. The topic under investigation, this is where you get your first choice at picking. And again, this is for people at home who can't make the Zoom and who are watching on YouTube. I just want to be pretty explicit about this. You don't need to use all of this data. You're just using some of this data. So what I would do is I'd look for, you need to do a categorical data set and you have to use a numerical data set. So numerical, of course, the answers are numbers. Categorical, the answers are words or letters. So if we're looking at this data set, I want to pick two of them that are related. For example, the sport people have picked for GIPSA has pretty much no relevance to phone usage in a single day. Okay, maybe you could construct some situation where there would be, but initially there's no very clear link. However, the sport people have picked for GIPSA might relate to hours spent exercising per week. Notice as well, hours spent exercising per week is numerical, GIPSA is categorical. So if you picked those two data sets, you've got a categorical, you've got a numerical, and they're related. The overall topic is sport, right? So if you come down further into the Formulate section where it says topic under investigation for Mr. Hughes, you might write sports played or let's say activity level of students. The categorical question therefore would be GIPSA sport chosen. The numerical question would be hours per week. Okay, boom, you've done that section. You don't have to do sport though, of course. You might choose a different two, and these are just a couple of examples. There's so many different ways you could use this data. Another example might be, let's say, mode of transport to get to school, that's categorical, and minutes it takes to get to school on average, that's numerical. And they're both related because it's all about transport. So transport would be your overall topic. You've got phone usage per day compared to term 4 year 7 maths results 2019. Maybe you think there's going to be a link between how often someone uses their phone and how good they are at maths, So these are the types of links that you want to make when choosing your data sets. One categorical, one numerical, and then the overarching topic is, well, what have they got in common, essentially. So once you've chosen your topic and you've identified the categorical question, you've identified the numerical question and written them in, you detail why these questions relate to your topic. You then discuss the sampling technique Mr. Hughes utilized, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. However, if you read the task, so right up at the top of the task sheet on the front page, it tells you in here, if you read it, which you should, what type of sampling technique Mr. Hughes used and how big the sample size was. So you discuss that information here. Then finally, I get to Zach's actual question, which is about the prediction. I need to preface this part with saying, before COVID became a thing and we were going to do this in person, one of the aspects of the task was for you guys to construct your own questions to investigate, and then you were going to survey your class and actually collect your own data. So this prediction or hypothesis was going to be much more relevant because you would ask it before, yeah, you can, Zach. You would ask this question before actually collecting the data. In this instance, it's a bit strange because you have the data now, so you have the data already. So you kind of have to make a prediction based on data you already have. My recommendation is, let's say you picked the GIPSA sport Now, you haven't specifically gone through and counted how much of each, but from your own, for your own experience, you might know, okay, me and all my friends, we play touch football. I know heaps of year 8 kids who play touch football. Seems like a pretty popular sport amongst our grade. So my prediction for the categorical hypothesis might be, if we ask students what their favorite GIPSA sport is, or what sport in GIPSA they chose, then the most common response is going to be touch football, because, you know, whatever your reason is. It might literally just be because I know a lot of people who play touch football. That's good enough at this point. For the numerical one, we might say, if touch football is the most chosen GIPSA sport, then the hours spent playing per week will be high, because you need to play a lot of touch football to get really good at touch football, or something like that. Okay. So you just essentially want to be making predictions about what you think the data is going to show. And yes, I understand that the data is already there and you can already look and answer pretty much your own prediction, but you want to imagine that you haven't seen the data, make a prediction about what you think the results will be. And then later on in Solve, we'll actually do a bit of analysis and see whether your prediction is true. Now, you don't get marked down for being wrong in your prediction. It's literally just a prediction. So genuinely make a prediction what you think will happen. And if it turns out to be wrong, that's fine. You get to discuss why it might have been wrong, why the actual results were different, and that sort of thing. Yes, absolutely. But the other way around, Zach. So Zach said, as an example, can he say that if the math grade is high, then the study hours will be high, because they are revising information more frequently? And almost correct. The difference is math grade does not cause them to study more. It's studying more causes them to have a better math grade. So you just switch that sentence around, Zach. So if you study more, you're going to have a better math grade. But yeah, that's great. So hopefully that cleared up a little bit about the hypotheses part, or the prediction part. Now down in Solve, from the data from our Excel spreadsheet or from this task sheet, what we want to do is we want to take all of this. I'm going to use GIPSA as an example again. We take the GIPSA data and we put it into this frequency table. So for example, one of the sports was volleyball. One of the sports was chess. One of the sports was, I don't know, pretend it was soccer. What you do is you take all the sports you can find, list them down here, tally up how many times volleyball appeared, how many times chess appeared, how many times soccer appeared, etc. And then let's say the tally was 3. The frequency is just a number 3. You do that for the categorical data, but you also do it for the numerical data. So hours spent playing sport, your answers are going to be 0 hours, or 1 hour, or 2 hours, or 3 hours, or 4 hours, etc., etc., etc. Tally how many people had 0 hours, how many had 1 hour, how many had 2 hours, put in the frequencies, and your tables are done. You choose a graph for each of the data sets that you've got. For categorical data, you would pick a column graph, a bar graph, a pie chart, a picture chart or picture graph. It's like a bar graph, but instead of bars, you have little pictures like little soccer balls. Those are good examples of categorical data, but you wouldn't use those for numerical data. For numerical data, you would use stem and leaf, or a histogram, or a dot plot, or a time series, or a scatter plot. Okay, there's lots of different types. You can do a box plot. There's a lot of different ways to represent your data. Depending on the type of question, this one might be really good. The dot plot might be a really good choice, but also maybe a histogram would be really good if you have decimal values or ranges of values. Stem and leaf plot's good for 2-digit numbers. Scatter plot is really only good if you're comparing data. So if you've got bivariate, we're not really doing that. Box plot's a good way to represent your 5-number summary. If you're not sure what a 5-number summary is, because we haven't done it, feel free to Google that or YouTube videos about that. So I would recommend probably one of these two. If your answers are single digits, or if the frequency rather is if the answers are single digits, double digits. That's good. That's a good generalization, I suppose. So you make a graph of each of them. Keep in mind, you may choose to hand draw your graphs and photograph them, then insert them as a report. But if you're really good at technology, you might want to draw them using an Apple stylus, or you might want to, you also might want to, that's right, Zach. Sorry, I'm just answering questions. Yeah, that's fine, Zach, as for both questions. Alice, do the graphs have to be one that we learn about this term? It's preferable, Alice. If you find one that works really well that you haven't learned about this term, feel free to put it in as long as it represents the data nicely. Cool. Then moving on, summary statistics. This is only for your numerical data. You can't calculate the mean of categorical data. It just doesn't work. What you want to do, I mean, at most, you could calculate the mode of your categorical data, the one that occurs the most frequently. For the rest of them, you can't do, so only do this for your numerical data. For evaluate and verify, I'm not going to go through that now. That's a few weeks away that we want to start doing that. This, I want to keep it reasonably short because I want to talk about what you guys need to know to get started. Now, I'm going to show you how I would get started with my own PSMT, okay? I would have a blank Word document and I would start with title page. And then I would go enter, 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 and I would go to a new page because I can fill out the title page 20 minutes before I submit the PSMT. It's really not important. It's just there for information for whoever's marking it. So don't worry about your title page. Don't spend hours on it before you get started. It's just procrastination at that point. The second one is contents page. Again, I'm going to do this at the end because I don't know where Formulate's going to start. I don't know where Evaluate and Verify is going to start. So I can't actually fill in my contents page yet. So I'm going to enter down. Page 3. Yes.
Sir, I think it's frozen again.
Okay, thank you.
All I'm seeing is Formulate page 3, but it might just be me. That's
fine. I'll just start again, no problem. Once you get to page 3 in your Formulate, is this all good? Is it back, Drew?
Yeah, it's better. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for letting me know again. On page 3, I would make a heading, this time in bold. I'm going to call it Formulate. And in my Formulate section, I'm going to go back to my task sheet and hopefully it doesn't freeze. I think it freezes when I switch between screens. I might, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to share my actual whole screen. So when I change, it should switch nicely. I'm going to go back to my PSMT scaffold and I'm going to copy this, switch back to my other document and paste it. Okay, and I'm going to use this, I'm going to get rid of the C solve bit, but I'm going to use this as a mini heading and highlight everything. You know, I might use bold for headings. Okay, so I'm going to bold this. So I'm going to, keep in mind, the scaffold is instructing you guys how to understand it. So when it says introduce the purpose of the investigation, that's telling you what to do. In my heading, I don't want it to say introduce the purpose of the investigation. I just want it to start with purpose of the investigation. Does that make sense? Like I want to help the reader understand what this is about to say. So I might have purpose of the investigation as one brief heading. And then further down, I'll have a heading that says mathematics used throughout the investigation. Again, I don't want to have the heading mathematics that you will use throughout the investigation. It doesn't make sense. What I want is mathematics that will be used in this investigation. Okay, and that's another heading right there. Yeah, it doesn't have to be specific to the headings I've got. This is just an example. So purpose of the investigation, I might go back to my PSMT and I know the purpose of the investigation is on the first page. And I might copy and say, Mr. Hughes has designed a survey to see how all students at Southport State High School spend their spare time and the types of activities they're interested in. Copy, paste, and then I also want this bit where it says, Mr. Hughes has asked you to design a report where you identify the key behaviours of Southport State High School students using the survey responses. I'm going to copy and paste that. I'm not going to use this explicitly word for word. That would be plagiarism. However, I'm going to understand what this is saying and then I'm going to rephrase it. Okay, and this is what I expect you to do as well. So Mr. Hughes has designed a survey wanting to know how all students at Southport State High School spend their spare time, and he wants us to design a report to identify these key behaviors. So I'm going to now underneath say, the purpose of the investigation, that's the heading, by the way, purpose of the investigation, and the purpose is, and you start with to, it's kind of like a name, to investigate the types of activities students at Southport, and you want to write in words the first time you use this, Southport State High, and then you can abbreviate SSH or SSHS, Southport State High School. So to investigate the types of activities students at Southport State High School participate in, and to create a report that displays this information. Boom, done. And then I would get rid of this stuff that I copy and pasted because I don't want to plagiarize. I don't want to just copy and paste the task, but I want to rephrase the task to make sense. And that's good enough. You don't have to write 50 pages. All you have to do is write, what is the purpose? And the purpose is to investigate the types of activities students participate in and to create a report that displays this information. Done. Mathematics that we'll be using in this investigation. This can be dot points. Doesn't have to be words. It doesn't have to be sentences. You could say frequency tables. You want to say maybe you're going to use a pie chart for your categorical data, and maybe you're going to use a dot plot for your other one. You're going to be calculating, you're going to be using summary statistics, and this might be in the form of median, mean, mode, range, outliers, that sort of thing. This is just a very brief example, and you might want to describe what these mean maybe, but that's what it means, mathematics that we used in the investigation. Once I've done that, I go straight back, and this is the last thing I'm going to do because I feel like I'm doing the assignment. I go back to this scaffold that I've been given, and I look at topic under investigation, categorical question under investigation, numerical question. Copy that stuff, enter, 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 paste it down here. You can remove the table. If you guys need help with Microsoft Word, just Google it. There's so much information out there. And I might go sports played, categorical question is, now this is where I go to the Excel spreadsheet, which you can find on eLearn. And my question for GIPSA was, what GIPSA sport did you choose this year? So I'm going to copy that, go here, paste. What GIPSA sport did you choose this year? And my numerical question was hours spent exercising. So how many hours per week do you spend exercising? Copy that, paste it here. Done. Now I'd format that so it looks pretty, but that's essentially the process, okay? Getting started in these PSMTs is the hardest part. It's the hardest part of any assignment task, is getting started, getting the motivation to start, and also understanding how to start. So hopefully this has given you a bit of an introduction about how to start. And once you've got this, got the ball rolling, you can just use your PSMT scaffold, use it as a guide for how you're going to structure your own document, okay? I don't want you to write in the task sheet. I want you to use it as a guide. So after you've finished all of Formulate, you want to enter, 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 enter until you get to a new page, and you've got Solve. You do a bunch of stuff for Solve. You've got a lot of formulas. You've got a lot of graphs. And after that, you go to the next page and you go bold up. You've got Evaluate and Verify. And then you've got a lot of information there, and you follow the scaffold to help you understand what you need to write. And then you're done, okay? If you've got an appendix page, because that's where your calculations are, you would also have at the end, appendix, calculations and whatnot. That's what would be in the appendix. So that's how I would go about starting my PSMT. I'm going to now unshare. Oh, actually, no, I'm just going to answer questions without unsharing. So we've got, let me just go back up and make sure I haven't missed anything. Okay. I'm going to upload this meeting probably tomorrow. I'm going to probably just going to upload the whole thing to YouTube. Do we make up our own categorical and numerical questions based on the topic we have chosen? No, actually you go to the task sheet, or you go to the Excel document, which is on eLearn as well, and you pick one of these. So in terms of the the questions that you've got to answer. This is all data. So for example, this one here, fruit and vegetables consumed per day, how many pieces? This is all data that relates to the question above. How many pieces of fruit? Let me zoom in so you can read it a bit better. The question is, how many pieces of fruit and vegetables do you consume per day on average? And the answers are here. So the data's already the question's already been asked, and you already have the data. So you just pick the data sets that you want to use. You don't actually have to collect the data or ask the question yourself. The other, let me just go back to the meeting controls and get the chat back up. Would an appendix enhance our communication? Great. Not necessarily, Zach, as long as you show the working for your, you either show all of the mathematical working, including your formulas and substitutions in Solve, or you just write your answers in Solve and show all your working in appendix. It doesn't matter which way you do it. No, I'm not going to email that Word document to you, Drew. I'm afraid you will have to create your own. However, the YouTube video will be up as of tomorrow, or maybe tonight. And so you can press play and you can pause that video as you're creating your own document if you need to move forward. But I'm not going to email, I'm assuming you meant, this is a blank document. I'm not going to email it out because I think that will be just too spoon-feedy, I suppose. I want you to be able to understand that you should go to this scaffold that's in the task sheet, which you can download off eLearn, and you can just copy and paste the little headings if you need help making headings.
So where do you find the video?
I'll upload it tomorrow and I'll email it out to everybody.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Otherwise, if you're ever sure, if you think a video exists, for example, but you're not sure where, you just go to eLearn, and it might be up.
And when is all of this due? When is the PS whatever?
MT.
Yeah.
Yep. So the problem solving modeling task, which PSMT stands for. Yeah. Let's have a look. I'll show you, because I want to guide you to develop your own skills of reading and whatnot. So or interpreting rather. So on any PSMT for maths that you get, you're going to have the same structure. Okay. So it'll have your topic, the technique here, PSMT. It's got the grade, what unit you're doing, the topics that you're doing, what mode of response, because sometimes you're not going to have a written report. Sometimes you might have an essay in English, or you might have a whatever. It says 3 weeks, but more specific to your question, this is the information you want here. So you've got due date. The handout was Monday this week. So that's the information there. Then you've got a progress check, which is a draft, okay? And this is lesson 3 Friday. Your draft is due. This is going to be now I said this in my last Zoom if anyone was there, but your draft submission, colloquially, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but common understanding of a draft is a half-finished report, and that's not accurate. Okay, what you want to do when you're submitting a draft is to have your assessment fully completed. It just doesn't have to be super nice. Like if we go back and look at mine, I've got title page there, I've got contents page here indicating that's what I'm going to be doing, but I also have formulate, purpose of the investigation, mathematics, just in dot points. I've got a weird table here, but I've answered my questions. I can submit this for a draft, okay? Assuming I've finished Solve and I'd finished Evaluate and Verify. If I'd finished everything, but it looks like this, like it's a bit messy and it's not very neat, that's fine to submit for a draft. Submitting something that's really pretty, but you've only done Formulate, that's not good enough. We don't want you to submit something that's half done by, and if we go back to the task, by the 8th of May, which is next Friday, you should have Formulate, Solve, and Evaluate and Verify done. It just doesn't have to be perfect. It can be dot points as long as you've done a bit of everything. So I can give you feedback about what really needs to be improved. And keep reading, because this is a submission instructions. It says submitted through eLearn before 3 p.m. Now, with that said, which I still do want you to do that, I also want you to just email it to me. And you can email me any progress check at any point, by the way. If you just want to send me one tomorrow and say, hey, sir, I've just finished Formulate and I just want to email it to you just in case something goes wrong and I lose it. Absolutely, email it to me. To submit, by the way, on eLearn is you go to eLearn, go to Year 8 Maths, and on the left-hand side, you've got Assessment and Revision. We want to go down to Item 2 PSMT and click that. And Draft Submission. You'll notice there's a final submission and a draft submission. This might not be available to you yet, by the way. It depends whether Ms. Hopner's made it available to students. But when you need to submit, it will be there. And all you do is you click on that link and it'll take you to this submission page. Preview, upload assignment, blah, 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 draft submission. So you make sure you've clicked the right one, not final, but draft submission. And what you do is you click Browse My Computer. It'll bring up a little, what's it called? Little file explorer or whatever. It'll look different on your iPad, but it'll still open it up. And all you have to do is navigate to where it is and say, for example, this is your draft submission. You just click open. It'll attach it down below here. So it's going to attach it. And then all you have to do is come down here and click submit. Oops, my mouse got lost. All you have to do is come down here, click submit, and you've submitted via eLearn. That's what you need to do by next Friday by 3:30 p.m. And get used to this because this is how you're going to be submitting pretty much every maths PSMT for the rest of your schooling lives. And the final for Drew and everyone else is week 5, lesson 1 Monday, which is the 18th of May. And just like the draft, we want you to be submitting that via eLearn, but feel free to also email me that as well. Let's answer some questions here. Will I put it on eLearn, the link? Yes, I will, or I'll give it to Ms. Hopner and she can put it on eLearn. Can we ask you to schedule Q&A meetings? Well, I'm thinking while we've got this PSMT and people seem to be pretty confused about it, I might do one every Monday and one every Friday. The only reason I can't do one tomorrow is because I'm supervising tomorrow and I can't actually do a Zoom while I'm supervising the students who are here at school. But if you have a question that doesn't fit in with those times or you can't make it, feel free to email me. If it's a question that you've tried to have answered and you just can't find the answer, whether you go to YouTube or whether you just Google it, whether you look through the lessons, look through the textbook, if you still can't find the answer, then please email me. Does the Formulate page have to be in a big paragraph? No, it doesn't, Rose, which is nice because it not only makes it easier for you, but it makes it easier for me to read. So for example, this is going to be how I would do Formulate. I would have heading, like a mini heading, and then answer that mini heading. Then I would have another mini heading, answer that mini heading. Then I would have another mini heading, and I would answer that mini heading. Now I wouldn't have it this simple. I would speak in sentences and paragraphs, but it doesn't have to be one big blurb. In fact, I don't like it when it's one big blurb. It doesn't make it easy to read and you actually lose marks in communication. Set it out like this where you have heading, answer, heading, answer, heading, answer. It's going to make it much easier for you as well. What does the target population prediction mean? So if I go back to the task and find what you're referencing, Alice, not that. Where am I looking? Target population prediction. So I mentioned this before in this video, but just briefly, I'm going to tell you this was relating to more when you had to do your own research and investigation. So I'm actually going to put a strike through that. And I'm just going to tell you, make a hypothesis about the categorical data and make one about the numerical. So if I was doing the sport one, again, it's the same example. I would say, if students are asked what dips of sport they play, then the answer will be, the most common answer will be touch football, because I have lots of friends that play touch football and touch football seems to be a very popular sport amongst year 8s. So I have an if, I have a then, and then I have a because. And likewise for the numerical, I might say if touch football is the most popular GIPSA sport, then hours spent exercising per week will be high because touch football requires lots of skill and you need to practice it to get good at it, or something like that. Okay, so try and ignore this part. It makes a lot more sense when we did the PSMT in the other way, but we've had to adapt it slightly and give you all the data straight up. So you do have to do it, just not in the way we wanted you to do it before. It's a simple prediction about what the results might show from your questions. Okay, the questions you pick. Is all the information you're stating now going to be in the video?